Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A very important session this week regarding male hygiene, and I'll be going through a lot of detail as well. So, introduction. Introduction. Why is male hygiene important? The Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions in a hadith of Tahuru Shatrul Iman that cleanliness is half of Iman. There's a massive emphasis on staying clean and hygiene in Islam. Hence, Islam encourages that we stay clean all the time so that we are beloved in the eyes of Allah Ta'ala, and also angels stay with us because angels they don't like foul smell. They don't like foul smell. Just like there's a hadith that mentions regarding eating of garlic, and also when a person commits sins, then also angels do not like it. For example, when a person lies. So cleanliness is half of Iman. And I've already explained why is cleanliness so important in Islam. So there's many reasons for that, because first of all, purity is a condition for prayer. The Holy Prophet ﷺ says, "La tuqbalu salatun bighayri tahur," that no salah is accepted without purification. So hence, if a person is not purified correctly, then that person's prayer is not going to be valid in the eyes of Allah Ta'ala. So purification is a very important part of Islam. So it's important for Salah, because if a person is not purified properly, then the Salah will not be valid. In the same manner, if a person is not purified correctly, when a person goes to perform Umrah or Hajj, the pilgrimage, then Tawaf will also not be correct. Also, if a person intends to read the Quran Kareem, and if a person is not purified correctly, then the wuzu and ablution will not be valid. Hence, praying the Quran Kareem will not be of much reward in them circumstances. So purity is a condition of prayer, is one of the five pillars of Islam. And one of the first questions that will be asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment will be regarding purification, or will be regarding the salah and the prayer. That can only be valid correctly if a person um, performs salah correctly, performs ablution correctly. So now the first question is, what we've got to understand is about maturity, because salah only becomes compulsory at a certain age. The Holy Prophet ﷺ mentions in a hadith that when a child reaches the age of 7, then he should be taught how to pray salah. When he reaches the age of 10, then he should be reprimanded if he does not pray salah. And obviously, at the age of maturity, a person has to pray salah. At the age of puberty, a person has to pray salah. At the age of puberty, a person must pray salah. And that can only happen if a person has already the habit of praying salah correctly. Okay, all of a sudden a person becomes mature, and then the next day he wants to pray salah. That regularly, that doesn't really happen. So it's important that a person is regular with his salah before the age of maturity. So now my question to you is that when does a male become mature in Islam? So what I'd like you to do is answer this question in the chat box, please. When does a male become mature in Islam? How do we know that a male has become mature in Islam? What are your answers regarding that? No answers? Yeah, okay. So I've got some answers here. Some have mentioned having a wet dream at the age of 14. These are these are all correct answers. Okay, but I'll give you a bit of detail. So the natural way, there are many ways, there are many signs, you could say. There are many signs that a person has become mature in Islam. But there's one natural way where a person becomes mature, and that is if a boy has a wet dream. If a male has a wet dream. And in Arabic, this is known as ihtilam, and the English term, the kind of English term used for it is a wet dream. So while a person is sleeping, they will while a person is sleeping, they will discharge a liquid which will be sticky and very different from um, the normal urine that a person passes when he goes to the toilet. When the person wakes up, they will notice the wet sticky patch in their underwear or trousers. This is a very common occurrence, and one should not be embarrassed when this happens. Um, so now this kind of occurrence, it can happen. It can happen. It can happen at 11. It could happen at 12. Unfortunately we live in such an environment that it does happen. Unfortunately, it happens at an early age. Hazrat Sheikh Zakaria Rahmatullah Ali, a very great scholar who wrote the Fazali Amal, he says that he did not have a wet dream until he actually became fully baligh, which was round about 15 years old. He only had a wet dream once, and that's it, when he became baligh. So it's about controlling our thoughts as well. If we control what we watch and if we control our thoughts, then there'll be a bigger delay in when a person becomes mature. So now, some of you mentioned the 14 years old. Commonly at the age of 14, it does happen. So when a child reaches Islamically the age of 15, when a child reaches the age of 15 Islamically, which is calculated as 14 years and 7 months. 14 years and 7 months. So before the age of 14 years and 7 months, if a person has a wet dream, if a child has had a wet dream, then in them circumstances he becomes baligh. And by the age of 14 years and 7 months, so it's according to the English calendar, 14 years and 7 months, if a person has not had a wet dream yet, then Islamically that person become mature. Okay, and this is why it's very important that when a child is born, parents should make a note of the Islamic day. I mean, we all know the English day. You probably know your day of birth, the English day, but you might want to ask your parents, what's my Islamic day of birth? What day was I born in? Which month? Which Islamic month was I born in? So to summarize, at the age of 14 years and at the age of 14 years and 7 months, a person will become baligh if no other signs have appeared. Um, there are signs. There are signs that happen during the age of puberty. So the coming out of the beard. Okay, a child's voice breaks. Um, certain people start to smell more. You need to have regular baths as well. So things like that do happen. Okay. So when a person becomes mature in Islam, what are the obligations that are required? So there's some small illustrations there. Now Salah becomes farz. If he wasn't praying namaz before, start praying namaz, and Salah has become farz now. If Salah is abandoned, that person will be sinful. Okay. During the month of Ramadan, all the fasts have become farz. If a person has the equivalent amount of wealth, which is called an nisab, at the moment, if a person, I think according to the current amount is about just nearly £400. If a child who reaches the age of puberty has the amount of just about £400, then after 1 year passes, zakat becomes farz upon that child. Okay, so you don't wait for your mom and dad to tell you that zakat becomes farz. If you own that much money, it's your money, not your mom and dad's money. If it's your money, then that becomes zakat becomes first. And also, if you have the sufficient amount of wealth, then Hajj will also become first upon you. So this is actually for the parents. They need to teach their children how to fulfill the obligation before they mature, so that when the age of puberty hits, a child is well prepared to take on any of those circumstances. Okay. The hadith of the Holy Prophet ﷺ mentions, and I mentioned this before, the muru awladakum bis salat wa hum abna'u sab'i sinin, that make your children habitual of praying namaz at the age of 7. Because if a person starts praying from the age of 7, even though it's irregular, so in about 7 years' time, when the child reaches the age of 14, it will be a shock. That person will be ready. That child will be ready to pray salah regularly. Okay. So as I mentioned before, the signs of a male becoming baligh is the most important one is the wet dream. Okay. And other are just signs. A person's beard may be coming out, but it doesn't mean that person is baligh. Until a wet dream doesn't happen, a child will not be considered baligh. So like I said, roundabout is English calendar, round about 14 years and 7 months or 6 months, a person will become baligh if no other sign has appeared. Okay. So how do you work out your baligh day? So the Islamic calendar has 354, so 367 days. Okay, the solar year has 365 days. So what you could do is you could divide the days and the months. Okay, I'm not going to go into detail with that. All you need to remember is 14 and 7 months. What you've got to understand is every Islamic year goes back about, it decreases about 10 days from the English year. And this is why Ramadan becomes early and early every year, because the Islamic calendar would have 10 days less than the English calendar. So once you reach the English years of 14 years and 6 months and 7 months, then a person will be considered baligh. Okay. Right. Okay. Do we have any questions regarding that before I move on? If you have any questions, you can put into the chat box. No? Okay. Right. So I've spoken about puberty. I want to go into a bit more detail now. Okay. So we've discussed already that what is puberty. There are certain individuals who are exempt from Islamic rulings. Okay. So until a boy or a girl do not reach the age of puberty, no Islamic commandment, they're not obliged to do any Islamic commandments. So praying salah, etc., would be optional, right? For a person who's sleeping, for that person who's sleeping, there's no Islamic commandment is further at that time. And if a person is insane, also at that time, no Islamic commandment is obligatory for that person. So once a person becomes baligh, he is now considered a responsible adult. I mean, when you look at the English law, it's about 18 years old. But Islamically, once you reach the age of 15 or 14 years and 7 months, according to the English calendar, you are considered as responsible and accountable. And like they say, you are the author of your own book, so make it a good read. Make sure it has a good ending. So now we need to make sure that we remain in the state of cleanliness, perform the 5 daily prayers, keep all the fasts of the Ramadan, perform Hajj if you can afford it, and give zakat if you have the amount that reaches the threshold. And like I said, at the moment, it's approximately just nearly £400. Signs of puberty, we've discussed that. And the main one is a wet dream. Any other things happening, for example, facial hair. If pubic hair, which grows under the armpit and near the private parts, if your voice breaks, and also inclination and liking the opposite gender. These are all signs that a person has become mature, or are signs that a person will become mature, signs of puberty. Now, you may or may not know this. This is quite important. There are certain type of fluids which are discharged from a male's organ. Okay. The first one, right? The one that makes the ghusl wajib, the one that makes a person impure, is called mani, semen, or sperm. When a person has a wet dream. Okay. So what is a sperm and semen? It's a thick white liquid, and when it is discharged from a person's organ, you feel pleasure, and after it comes out, you feel exhausted. Okay. How does it affect cleanliness? It's impure, so if it goes on any part of the clothing, it has to be washed. If you have your own bedroom, you need to make sure that you have a towel ready. You have you have certain things ready to make sure that if you need to go for a bath, you don't need to ask anybody. So you're not embarrassed. You don't need to ask anybody. You go to the bath, have your own bath, and so on and so forth, and become pure. Okay. So it's in these circumstances, farz to have a shower. If money or sperm falls onto the clothing, then it must be washed and rubbed 3 times. Okay, if you're washing it under a tap, it doesn't need to be rinsed. But normally, if you put it into a washing machine, it will become pak, because the washing machine then it releases it takes away the dirty water. Okay, so the first part is known as money and semen, the first kind of discharge. There's also another discharge called mazi. This is a sticky white fluid which is discharged when a person has thoughts about the opposite gender. How does it affect cleanliness? A person doesn't become napak, he doesn't become impure, and he doesn't need to go for ghusl. However, whichever part of the clothing it touches, a person must clean that part. Okay. Also wash the private parts as well. It is a sticky substance. If it falls on the clothing, again, the same thing. You need to wash it 3 times. Wash it 3 times and or put it into the washing machine. Okay. Try and avoid mixing it with the clothing. That'll be much more better. Another type of fluid that comes out is known as wadi. Wadi is a fluid that comes out either before a person urinates, goes to the toilet for number 1, or after a person urinates. Now, this is also impure, and this is actually a blessing of Allah Ta'ala, because the urinary tract, the inside of a person's organ, it needs to stay, you could say, slimy, so that when you go and urinate, it's easy for the person to go to the toilet. So Allah Ta'ala makes it come out now and again, so that your inside organ of your inside part stays slimy, so you can urinate correctly, okay, and properly, sorry. So again, it's napak, you wash the private parts and you do wuzu. A shower is not needed, okay? Right, okay, so we'll come to that section in a moment. Right, the next part I want to speak. Okay, so do we have any questions so far? I might be speaking a bit fast. Do we have any questions so far? I'll wait a few seconds. No questions? Okay, no problem. Right, okay. Now, the next section is how to perform istinja correctly. Does anybody know what does the term istinja mean? It's an Arabic word. You can type in the chat box. Anybody know what istinja means? No? Okay. Istinja means how to clean yourself when you go to the toilet. Okay. Again, like I said, Islam is a very compact religion. It has explained and described everything. I mean, the fact that this religion of ours, Islam, Alhamdulillah, teaches us how to go to the toilet, that itself shows that Islam is a true religion. There's no other religion out there which goes into so much detail. So, how to perform istinja correctly? All right, we have a question, I think. If you are not baligh and you have some hair on your private parts, you still have to shave it. Right. Okay. Very good question. We're going to come to that in a moment. Until you don't become baligh, right? If you don't shave it for 40 days or more, you'll be sinful, but you should start getting into the habit of doing that. Okay, but once you become baligh, then any sin a person does, a person will be sinful. Okay. Right. Okay. So, question is, what is istinja? Istinja is a term used to describe the process in which one removes uncleanliness after they have been to the toilet. Okay, why is istinja important? If istinja is not done properly, then it will leave a person in an impure state. And obviously, that's going to affect the person's wuzu. It's going to affect the person's salah. And when wuzu and salah is not correct, the person will be sinful just because the person did not clean themselves properly when going to the toilet. Right, okay. What can you see on my screen at the moment? All right, okay, hold on. Sorry. Yeah, there we are. I think you can probably see it now. Okay. Yeah, okay. So the importance of istinja. Like I mentioned, if it's not done properly, it can affect wuzu and ghusl. Okay. So, what does the Quran Kareem say about purity? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran Kareem, لَمَسْجِدٌ أُسِّسَ عَلَى التَّقْوَى من أول يوم أحق أن تقوم فيه رجال يحبون أن يتطهروا والله يحب المطهرين. Now, the Prophet ﷺ, when this verse was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ was in Quba. Quba is it's about three miles away, about approximately 3 miles away from the Masjid Nabawi, from the Holy Prophet ﷺ's masjid. So the Prophet ﷺ was in Quba at the time this verse was revealed, and on the final part of his hijrah to Medina, he laid down the foundation of a masjid over there, which is known as the Masjid Quba. So when this verse was revealed, the Prophet ﷺ asked the people of Amr ibn Auf, who were the largest family in Quba, what purity is Allah Ta'ala talking about in your praise? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had praised the people of Quba in this verse. So they replied that after they perform istinja with stones, they also use water. So the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, exactly. This is the action why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has praised you. Now, because they were using additional measures to clean themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loved this so much, because obviously the more pure you are, the more chance of acceptance of your salah and wuzu and salah and tawaf, etc. Okay, but nowadays we won't use stones. Okay, you don't want to do that, because if you were to use stones, that would kind of block the toilet, especially putting it down the toilet. So nowadays, ideally, to be to gain Allah Ta'ala's pleasure, what you would first do is use tissue paper and absorb any drops of urine, and then use water. Okay, so Allah Ta'ala mentions here that fihi rijal yuhibbun an yatatahharu wallahu yuhibbul mutahhirin. Allah Ta'ala loves those people who actually clean themselves and take additional measures to clean themselves. Okay, it's sunnah to use water. كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا خرج لحاجته أجيء أنا غلام معنا إداوة من ماء يعني يستنجي به. And the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم used to use water to clean himself. Okay. Hazrat Anas رضي الله تعالى عنه he narrates the following hadith in Sahih Bukhari, that whenever the Prophet ﷺ went to answer for the call of nature, I used to come and another boy with me with a tumble full of water, and so that he may wash his private parts. So washing is an addition, but later on I'll go into detail, when is it wajib to wash, when does a person have to wash, when a person can wash. But regardless of that, in all circumstances, a person should be washing their private parts anyway. Okay, and it'll be a good idea to keep some tissue paper in your pocket. You can buy them small packets of tissue paper. So if there's no tissue paper available in the toilet, maybe you're on a journey, you're somewhere, so you can clean yourself with the tissue paper first of all, and then you can wash yourself. There's also caution in the hadith where the narration of Ibn Abbas anhu, that the Prophet ﷺ, he passed by two graves and said, indeed, both of them are being punished. And they are not being punished for a great thing. As for one of them, he did not save himself from being soiled with his own urine. And for the other, he used to walk around causing enmity between friends. This hadith shows that a person, if he doesn't take care when passing urine, it can be a source of punishment in the grave. So a person needs to be very careful of how a person cleans themselves when they go to the toilet. Some children just go into the toilet and take like 2 seconds and come out. And how does that even happen? I don't understand. I'm not saying you take half an hour, but at least you take that amount of time where you can actually clean yourself properly. So we have to learn the proper way of going to the toilet. Question is, what is the correct method for urination? Any answers? You can answer in the chat box. Now, okay, we have an answer here. Let's see. Yeah, sit down, exactly. Okay. Now, I'm sure you all go to school and we have issues when we go to the toilet. Sometimes the toilet itself, you think it's not park. And sometimes we also see that you have these urinals, like the picture you can see on the screen. You have these urinals where you have to stand up and go to the toilet. So, what's the correct method of urinating? See, the problem is when we urinate standing up, there will be splashes from urine which will touch our clothes and bodies. Some will be so minute that we will not be able to see them, but they will have made us impure. And especially when you stand up, that really will happen. So what I would say is, there is a ruling that the toilet seat, I mean, this applies at home as well. Okay, if the toilet seat has any impurity upon it, Islamically, if a person takes a tissue paper and cleans the toilet seat with the tissue paper, the toilet seat will become park, right? So there's that option there where you can then sit down on the toilet seat and do number one or number two, whatever it is, okay? The other option is that if the need be, and this is in extreme circumstances, there's no way I can sit on that toilet seat, then you would be allowed to stand up in extreme circumstances, okay? Because standing up and doing istinja or peshab, right, is just not recommended at all. It goes against the Islamic principles, okay? So instead of standing up, a person should go into the toilet cubicle, sit down and do istinja correctly, okay? Standing upright is a problem for many reasons. First, it's embarrassing. If a person is next to you, they can see your private parts. Many things can happen. So it's not recommended at all. And then what a person can do is when they get home, especially in summer, As Zuhr Salah, you can pray even after school. When you get home, you can then wash yourself correctly and then pray your Zuhr Salah. In winter, a person needs to take precautions. Okay, make sure you have tissue paper with you to wash to clean the toilet. See, I'm sure we have tissue paper inside the toilet anyway, in the school cubicles. So when you stand up and do istinja, you will be able to clean yourself properly, especially in winter when Juma Salah is early, Zuhr Salah is early. Then if you haven't cleaned yourself properly, it could be an issue. It could be an issue. It could be an issue, right, with having to do istinja properly. So a person cannot totally relieve themselves when standing up. If a person sits down and relieves himself, then there's pressure on the bladder, which will allow the maximum amount of urine to pass. Also, when standing in a public place, there's chance that you'll be exposing your private parts to other people, which is haram. Okay. Also, when standing up, there's a greater chance of infection, disease. So this is why I'm saying that only in extreme circumstances should a person stand up and do istinja. Inside a school toilet, if you clean the seat with a tissue paper, the toilet seat does become dark. Okay, and then you can sit on it. And if you're still in doubt, then you can go home and then clean yourself correctly. Because when you stand up, you can't clean yourself correctly. It becomes very, very difficult anyway. In regards to saying if there's no water to wash yourself, like I said, there probably will be tissue paper inside the toilet, or keep tissue paper with you and make sure you clean yourself with the tissue paper. Nowadays, if you go on to certain websites like eBay and Amazon, you can find water bottles which actually you can fold them. You can fold them, put it into your pocket or your rucksack or your bag or whatever it is. And you can fill that up and then take it into the toilet cubicle and you can wash yourself. Okay. Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa anha actually says that whoever narrated to you that the Prophet ﷺ urinated standing up, do not believe him. So, however, the Prophet ﷺ would urinate in a squatting position. The squatting position is the ideal position. The toilets that you see in the masjid, for example, right? Those are those toilets where you can actually, in the sunnah method, you can squat down and you can go to the toilet. So, okay, moving on. I've already mentioned that standing up is against the sunnah and what problems can occur. And I've also narrated the hadith where Aisha Siddiqa narrates that if anybody narrated to you regarding the Prophet ﷺ, then do not believe them. But there is a narration regarding the Prophet ﷺ standing up, and that was only once, and that was due to extreme circumstances. So that should only be done, right, if a person has no other option. So now the correct method of going to the toilet, which I'll discuss in a moment. So just to conclude and clarify, some advice when going to the toilet, especially in public places: clean the seat if needed with some tissue and clean it and then dry it. Okay, and like I said, by cleaning a toilet seat, the toilet seat will become dark. Or another option could also be like to put toilet paper onto the seat and then sit on it. And also, sometimes if you also think that there'll be splashes of urine going back, then you could put tissue paper inside the toilet, just a slight bit, so that no splashes of urine going onto the body of a person and hence make a person impure. Some general etiquettes of going to the toilet. So yeah, so can anybody mention to me, are there any sunnahs that we should take into consideration before going to the toilet? And again, you can use the chat function. Enter with the left foot. That's right. Absolutely right. Yeah. So you enter with the left foot. Good. Okay. So let's have a look. Hold on. And we have another answer here. Read the dua before you enter. Yeah. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. Very good. Well done. Okay. So there's the dua that before you enter the toilet, read the dua. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. There's many reasons behind that which I'll explain later. Yeah. Read the ghufranaka when you leave. That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So in kind of general, before you go to the toilet, we should enter with the left foot. Is the narration of Hazrat Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu that read Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-khubuthi wal khaba'ith. And okay, also we have here after coming out, read the dua. That's right. You're right. Okay, yeah. So general etiquettes when we go into the toilet, once we have entered, we should not talk to anyone while we are relieving ourselves. Okay, when you're in the toilet, you shouldn't be talking to anybody. We should not read anything up inside or use any devices, including phones and handheld gaming devices. Why would you take a mobile phone inside the toilet? You know, some people have this habit. I mean, I've heard of people, right, taking newspaper inside the toilet. Try and spend as less time as possible inside the toilet because it's only a need, okay? Also, a person should remove their socks, right? It's no good saying that my toilet is packed. You don't know what is on the toilet floor. Always remove your socks before you go to the toilet. And it's also sunnah to wear sandals or chappal, as you call it, and then enter the toilet with your left foot. If there's anything that has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's name on it, then it should be removed. Make sure we have no rings or amulets, taweez with Allah ta'ala's name on it. And if there's a Quranic Kareem, you have a small Quranic Kareem or you have a Quranic Kareem on your mobile device, make sure it's not on the screen. Okay. A person should also make sure not to face or have your back towards the Qibla. The Prophet ﷺ says, that if any one of you goes to an open space for answering the call of nature, he should neither face nor turn his back towards the Qibla. He should either face east or west. The reason for east or west use here is because the Kaaba was south of Medina. So facing the north or south would be against the Sunnah. And also there's another hadith that if the toilet is to the nearest mean, if the toilet is facing the Qibla, if a person slightly turns away from the Qibla, then all his sins will be forgiven. That's in the hadith. If the toilet is facing the Qibla. And as one of you mentioned, the dua for coming out of the toilet is Ghufranak, Alhamdulillahi alladhi adhaba anil adha wa afani. Okay, I'd like you guys to end the session and join again because we've got 2 minutes before the session ends, okay? Jazakallah.